How about the guy who karate instructors, martial arts instructors use to teach things to class, to show things to the class? This part for a joke, and all I have to do is tell it in a funny way. I don't know how. And then, like like they have people who measure who which team's gonna win, or they're like boxing, which box is gonna win, what, and they bet and they try to figure out. In other words, so there's a really good boxing coach in a joke, and then there are all these activists, counter activists, theorists, counter theorists, and the norm, that we have with the news and all that. And they're having all these things and all these problems going on, and they go in. Someone had the idea to go in because also the guy was so good at picking it. So one day, it was known that sometimes they would go in because they figured out, okay, he's good at figuring out helping solve other local things, which he doesn't like to do. But once in a while, he would help them with the community. A boxing coach, and then so they went in there one day and like this. He had helped mayors and things, but now there was senators, things, and with people from foreign countries and things, all the groups, all the things in the news, and they were all in there in the boxing gym. And he told them, get out. And first he tried to help them, and they helped them, and they came in, and it was working. And then, well, I don't know, there's a joke here. Thank you. Boxing's it's just thing, but it's not funny yet. I mean, it could be. It could solve the world because right now there are all we have to do is put a temporary business that we all agree. Everywhere YouTube is, let's do a species body YouTube video to practice, and we can meet because it is recorded that countries A through Z have impositions that are not real, like secrets. There's a quality of fact, not like a secret, like a quality of fact human nature is recorded. They are only capable of describing as a secret, in all exceptions where it is proper to call it, like for example, as a criminal insidiousness nature, they can't defend that properly because all identities of the science's names and all exceptions, and the difference of that is used too to have it, that self value too, use that remotely, which sounds crazy, but in other words, relative to what slavery did with the method that blamed other things, others, ourselves for what it caused, and for what our founders told us to blame it on. Our founders' communications contain this, the breaching method as a scientific value. No one had free speech. Everyone's speech was measured. That's why they had to declassify this about their speech. But instead of appreciating it, we have rules only having been remembered. Appreciating the words of our founders, used leaving that out. Instead, in collusion, as collusions with all that left entrenched, with the torture, extortion, slavery method against even our founders, against everyone sickly distinctly, to make even functional, how sickly non distinctly against everyone, but everyone would self value that anyway, not realizing while defending natures of postures towards aggression and or calmness, for example, and with descriptions of that, or the differences or the emotions or motivations of any individual. Nature showed us, and our founders showed us not to do that, leaving out the breaching methods roles with all location slash s sickly distinctly, and then further at every individual difference there. Therefore, name too, with exceptions to hide, to keep blame the other things, others ourselves, what nature is going to and continually demonstrate. See, it wants and needs people to pretend that they could debate. That, in other words, We have black people's white bodies that was left out, and the breaching method was left out, and it was replaced. That which nature itself communicates, and that which our founders communicated with the subject of their communications. And we have to appreciate this simultaneously, where we have to appreciate measure already recorded having been used, denying it too, and self-valuing how they already had used our like styles of logic, natures of logic that pretended they believed, and I'm really believing that they're using the words of our founders actually. I mean, properly. There are proofs that even the words of our presidents, they don't. In other words, a lot of the times it look like um, President Biden, president slash chief, no, former president slash chief. Like he was doing it just to make the news, like he was tripping like on purpose to make the news, give them something to talk about. Because both locations, areas, and states are styles that are forcing individuals as leaders, no matter what country it's in, to 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 stay styles with them, blaming on other things other than themselves, with the breaching method cause and keeps, and for a method that's also showing them that they need to pretend not to realize offensively to come. As system tactile terrier, for example, with how nature shows us the value of the seasons before they come, shows us its identity, its method, its identity of communications with positive and negative. You know, and so it doesn't work through systems. It shows when we are using systems of other than the only one that you could use to appreciate the rest of its complete method of communication to us. In other words, it doesn't leave out how we have its body is showing us the hyper invisible but still discernible. That it is not our body, our species body is not the other species body. But it is anyway. The one that is hyper simultaneous. We are distinct from the other species bodies, but also non-distinct from them, and we are simultaneously with them, but also further hyper simultaneous slash hyper simultaneous. And because nature is increasingly showing us how it is functional, how there are also hyper additional distinct identities of its complete body. For example, this is what we are discerning when we discern. There is an extent to the past that we know was and is true, always a part of, and even anything made up is too. The identity that each part of everything though too has to its finite detail, to its group details, and to its simultaneous details. Three identities of possession over each one, and the way it is relative to where and how it is critical to discern how it is distinctly gaining as a volume as a simultaneous nature and as a hyper simultaneous nature, and as the where they're coming together like a mixture, where and how they are also simultaneously being it's more and more its identity of forever nature being made. But it's all here at Earth, with Earth's a special difference in your own. Distinct, non-distinct, simultaneous, slash hyper simultaneous. See, Earth too long has had criminal foreign influences. Hyper slash hyper criminal foreign influences. That is responsible for things that everyone had to respond to as all names and all from top down to bottom up simultaneously at countries A through Z. And it showed them how to blame other things other than themselves the best they could, which is tactically wrong as collusion, not realizing against themselves. And this sustained, and then modern religious messengers were born. And then it's not even that far long ago. You were thinking about it. In other words, there is a hyper-evidential trail that shows the difference between overt criminal enterprises, private ones, other countries, individually grouped together as criminal natures, our own. In other words, all that wasn't even remotely to the difference of it. And we're at the places we know, but then right back further to all locations /s. And again, relative to where nature has been communicating to us since we were born. That and how it is a hypernative system tactical terrier. These have been tactical terrier from. Boxing is fun, in other words. If we could just make a movie that admits the grounds been tactically denatured. Everyone agrees to it. People will jump in these conversations who are already. A lot of people are influenced by hierarchies constantly, foreign and domestic, and the difference of that. There have already been state collusions, which is one of the things that we have to pay attention to because we're going to go into the other simultaneous things. It's not just collusions. I'm not a lawyer, but this is a predicate acts with facts method that is simultaneously where and how it is a human fact nature breaching method. And there's other simultaneous things. And nature is showing us how natural law works and how the republic for which we stand was revealed. But the nature of debate regarding this, it contains quality aspects in nature that it relies on to defend itself. Where all sides of arguments and exceptions stay collusions, and or also sensing for the breaching method. If anybody individual, anybody as a majority, or if anybody as a country's name, starts making syntax proper, it adapts to it. If that country starts dealing with difference proper, therefore names, it adapts to it. Any grouping of countries that comes to try to counter all the criminal insidiousness nature, criminal foreign influences, and like bad things that happen in all locations, areas, and states, like the things reported in the news. I'm not going to refer to ones because I'm not going to use the news, but in other words, besides that, I've been ongoing telling you guys about the news, how they're being directed to put fake things that as their roles with interbranch and intelligence and the difference of that, which is also where all those people were mixed with foreign countries at the same time themselves distinctly, but also non-distinctly and simultaneously as collusion /s. And pretending other to screen the breaching method, which is being and having been stayed hyper additional with this, through how they have maintained predicate acts with facts, needs, natures, and styles of collusions at each age and nature of campus, including medical campuses, fire campuses, including prisons, including the state judicial branch offices and the state corrections offices of Connecticut, increasingly involved with inter and intra campuses, predicate acts, methods, where difference is involved, and pretending it's personal or whatever. In other words, pretending it's not personal where it is too. Simultaneously, the opposite because they're getting over on the simultaneous nature / hyper simultaneous nature. The forgiveness is because there are other names, and there's a hyper foreign name, even though there are group names too, being and having been used tactical terrier from how we are. Humanity actually has value syntactically, properly appreciated, and of the human species body of individual bodies, with all group differences being generated by the hyper difference. And also, like every identity, its identity already has and had relativity to positive and negative equally. But a special difference comes with demonstration of this quality of diffusion, and we are too. We're in how part of every body is an identity of forever nature. That as its identity. And this is what not just English was more probably and demonstrably revealed to teach, while appreciating other languages roles with it. Because one reason, because it was before criminally foreign the sciences became criminally foreign influence from off their campuses, regardless of the motivations or what, and then hyper additionally through other motivations, nature needs, interests. Additionally, with that, made more and more incapable of affording to be, let alone to protract short words with convictions proper by the sciences, and where and how they share an identity, while appearing not to, while not by any way, comes with a method of how it shows us answers and questions and how to answer them. How to look beyond the 3 parts of time we know about now. The value of seasons to come. The value of seasons that have been. The value of season here. But see, we have been. This hypernative system, incapable of affording the rights of what is Constitution unabridged and hyper additionally, simultaneously / hyper simultaneously. Why it is that we have rights that are too numerous to have to list them, and with the breaching method upon us. And so we were also supposed to show how no one ever addressed how the differences of the guilt with that, or the standing, guilt and predicate acts methods and murder methods, torture, extortion, slavery, though we're supposed to deal with it as roles of the people with the corrections officers in their original form and now. And like regarding how they speak about witch trials, how you can't leave witch trial. There's a witch trials place right next to where George Washington had to come to counter-extort with James Madison's plan and with founders behind him that he agreed to help and use the plan of. And right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, which was only against England, because there was internationally monitored conversations with each country's locations, areas, and states as colonies, including or the difference between that or what it was there. It's a differences racket. If they didn't follow those things, like in other words, I learned at Central Connecticut State University in notes that there were laws against anyone. If you were found out that you were speaking about building infrastructure outside of internationally monitored conversations, they would do bad things to you and everyone around you. And worse. And that's only one part of the breaching method. Don't forget there was slavery entrenched. Don't forget we have witch trials associated with it too. Our founders communicated for us to communicate other about how slavery was entrenched, northern colonies and southern colonies. Our founders communicated for us to explain other. That is a lot for us to explain about how slavery was left entrenched in northern states and southern states. Our founders communicated for us to communicate other about who pretends this and how they pretend and get away with pretending that they don't understand the significance of this, that they can't appreciate that. See, this is where, like, people, all need to see the whites of eyes. Don't shoot. In other words, there's an illness in the human species body of individual bodies, and it is a maintained illness. And there is one way to fix it. You have to follow mandated law. You have to show where and how. This breaching method originally still had the jobs, the types of things, types of law. At the same time, self-valid rules of the databases since before computers, with just fact treatments as knaves to hide and change facts and why, no matter what. No, people offensively, they just see at countries A through Z. They're learning that okay, you're supposed to hide the lies for your government. You're supposed to be good at being a liar. Or you're supposed to, and other people, okay, you're supposed to be good at telling the truth. But those are only truth tellers that use where they're truths are used for lies. Truths are used to screen lies. Even real motivations are used to screen the real motivations. Black pupils. All these things are discernible. Where and how we have what nature communicates and had communicated already, replaced. And then on top of that, with what our founders communicated and had communicated, replaced. It's involved with the torture method. Psychotically, like totally criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, readings of American history are involved with the people with psychiatry, and they're involved with police forms with badges, and they're involved with the family members of judges, with all kinds of natures of organized crimes at and next to each campus connected. And these are intermilitary, foreign and domestic. In other words, black pupils. We're going to pay attention to where and how the experts on reason have been criminally foreign influence, tactically delusion, wrought with this collusion with all kinds of organized crimes and organized crime methods, and the difference of that increasingly, all kinds of legal scams. We're going to pay attention to where and how the names, the departments are individually grouped in together, consciously being and haven't been used remotely, criminally foreign influence, syntax nature, so function nature, from off the locations. They'll tell you this when asked right. Even if they don't, this is what is recorded, black pupils. All this, hyper additional things that it is. These things, these subjects are and come with. No, in other words, black pupils. It is time. Please get Judge Napolitano to help because they used his Facebook page and they're still using inter-social media, and the difference of that with the interbranch switching and forging names and evidences, and then pretending that they don't realize that when they're typing fake things and collusions with the people doing it on social media, the same ones at the same time, increasingly since they were kids, time collusions with criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw fact treatment nature, and uses of names, including of our country's names and other people's countries. I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which we stand. And and meant something to me. If it meant one thing to you guys, you wouldn't you wouldn't change people's words, fake them or value that, and pretend that you don't realize that fake things have been put and are increasingly being put. Even if they made up all the stories about all those child abusers, leaders of kids, of elderly and of veterans' homes, if they didn't report it and how they didn't too, that's reported collusion too. The difference of that is used. You see those buildings in New York City with those things. The only reason that was caused by a breaching method. The suburbs that were built before America's founders were born, apart with the torture of themselves, the extortion of themselves, and the fact treatment nature slavery of themselves, therefore physical slavery of themselves. Everyone's sickly distinctly too, to measure and maintain other things, others themselves. Increasingly self-valued, enforced as bodies A through Z, forcing for the breaching method, not even a part of this A through Z list. Other things, others themselves, blamed for things that nature is demonstrating and about itself. And those demonstrates about itself too, blamed on things others themselves. Are used to ignore things. This has the types of jobs. So they'll tell you that everyone, in other words, everyone's a shock and all. They back them into types sickly distinctly to the branches of government, individually grouped in together. and the difference of them being having been the victims or the intelligence, which has never had its own identity. It's criminally foreign influence, tactically delusional. They're going to speak about anything without collusions. You don't leave out how the suburbs and the suits and ties above it and encounters and exceptions above it, syntactically as appreciated and has having been appreciated. Tactical ulterior from how our founders communicated to have such. Appreciated. See values, course, per nature's method. That's its identity attached to values the way we know. But this is why and how values have relativity to positive and negative simultaneously. Into value progression, where we are identity with positive and negative simultaneously, but also as a quality of diffusion, but not just the ways we know, because we're ignoring the system. It's short where it's principles and of communications with our short words. People are still forcing them pretended debatable. Black pupils to have forbid the hyper evidential. Here, revealed the body of Christ. This is more probably what the body of Christ is about, partially. For example, we're going to appreciate the hyper evidential black people. It is time. We have black people's whites. It is more probable that whatever if they didn't have enough gunpowder or what, it is more probable the real reason they said that. They made us all know only thing they did right was get us to know don't shoot until you see the whites of eyes. Is a famous phrase with the American Revolution. It is more probably having been cipher for us to decipher, just as President / Chief is. And just as we are nature, it shows us and our founders too. We are supposed to appreciate the breaching method and study the breaching method that demonstrably had been sustained against Native Americans. Before the European countries were here, while it had already been sustained through themselves. It was already prepping it as the collusions with intercultural that took down the mountains too in America and in Africa or Egypt. And this is more practical to convict too, because even if it was wrong, when people want to debate it, their debates contain the quality aspects in nature of demonstrations of their uses, being and having been at the locations they're at and other locations they've been. Where this path is it shows that every location, everywhere the human species body has a body, there's a demonstration syntactically in other ways. It's replaced, but we could show this. In other words, of everyone having blamed other things, so I lost my train of thought. Thank you. The point is that, in other words, and the names forging and switching and refusing to identify themselves. So there are a number of people involved with violence at the same time, and increasingly from other areas. Since I was a kid, they've been planting predicate acts with police that are forging and switching names and refusing to get on paper, and also at the same time with other countries and overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and people in campuses putting fake things there, including campuses like Central Connecticut State University, filmed 24/7. They've been putting fake things and changing it, and to cover up how they use all natures of investigators and campuses, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. In other words, all kinds of natures of organized crime with people associated with Quinnipiac University, including natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders. The same thing with Central Connecticut State University, and a whole bunch of people tied to Jamie Carone and other people with the name Carone that aren't even in the same family. involved with the same ones involved with child abusers, leaders of the kids, years apart, time, youth/estimate roles, including with former director, even if any of that was made up. They have predicate acts with the databases at each campus is connected, and with the different exceptions because they have the people next to them, also time. Increasingly each year, they're bringing this involved intercities, including when they respond and don't respond. It's recorded tied to it. But in other words, and they're changing what people say. They're saying, oh, this person is making conspiracy theories. And then that, on a mass scale, that's what they're using celebrities for, too. And the difference of it with guilt, see, forgiveness is because it's either at the network's locations or the intelligence next to them, too, or the difference of the security with them. At the same time, all that was juxtaposed with, or the difference of the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists. Now they're all using extremism together, radical. All reading of religious books, tactical terrier from the parts right at the front that dictate how to read them. Not by accident. The breaching method knew that where everyone would be fake with difference, therefore names and differences, plural too. Ugh. Vaccines. In other words, we just put this YouTube video. I forgot the YouTube video. In other words, we know this. We'll all agree the species body is tactically denatured. In other words, and like we should put it on Ukraine and Iran, because not because like we don't want to force Iran, we want to beg Iran because we don't want for the species to serve a function for our species and to be like a module. In a path that we could do also too, instead of okay, we're going to do a stay in business and then we're long term, we're going to do a temporary moves, and then we're going to sense. We have to put ourselves up as sensing. But we have to realize that there are needs imposed upon all the electrical needs, and the grounds being even the suburbs that were designed before America's founders were born. And all was tactically denatured, even to force Native Americans onto systems and food supply chains that they didn't want to be on. It had, in some ways, more means than us to stay off it. Us who are not Native American, but citizens of this republic that Native Americans and colonists, part of the colonists, came together to make. And then they forced the rest of the colonists. And that's what forced everyone, which is still not forced unabridged. And valuing why and how we have rights are too numerous to have to list them. And allowing the obligations for individuals to speak down and through. The same ones pretending that they should be trying to speak against power. Because in other words, this preaching method showing everyone how to speak for the law, how to speak for opposites, how to speak for power, might, tactical terror from that which is hypernetic pure, which is only this is what's about power, might, what has other species bodies with two eyes, has fish with two eyes, has them distinct from ourselves, but non-distinct, has them simultaneous with ourselves, but also for that as that further hyper simultaneous as a subject, not us nor them, but as both anyway. To an extent we can discern, and with that extent comes its complete identity relationship to itself, and the value of that only increasing those three ways. The same reason. That the same hyper reason why we appreciate three identities of zero. They don't just repeat like things. It's just things, but long.